I don't know that my story has a title. It's a personal story.
All right.
I guess, you know what, I did call it My Life with the Beatles.
Okay.
I love that you have a...
I have Beatles mug on here.
Yeah. So this is a story I told
I think I
last year.
heard you tell this story.
Yeah, I
Yes.
opened
Good
for
story.
Bob Harley. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I apologize if I get some of the, like if I mess up, should I, although it's more of a conversation.
Yeah,
so.
Nobody
it's
knows.
just a kind of conversation,
Yeah.
so don't worry too
There's
much
a
about
lot of like numbers. I'm not
Yeah.
great with numbers or dates, so.
Yeah.
But my story starts with a watch. When I was a child, my prized possession was this Minnie Mouse watch that my parents gave me. It had a candy apple red band, and on the face of it was Minnie Mouse. She was dressed in a red dress with white polka dots and yellow high-heeled shoes and a hat with a daisy sticking out of it. And she kept the time with her gloved hands. But my favorite part of this watch was on the side of it, there was this little button you pushed, and it played the song I Want to Hold Your Hand while Minnie Mouse's hands danced to the music. And I used to sneak off to the bathroom on school days just to press that button. And I didn't know who sang the song, and I didn't know all the words, but I knew the gist of it. I knew that Minnie wanted to hold someone's hand, presumably Mickey's. And I wondered, whose hand would I someday want to hold? And I wondered who would want to hold my hand. When the Beatles first appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, I think it was February 9th, 1964, 73 million Americans tuned in. And they concluded that set with the song I Want to Hold Your Hand. The song, which was #1 on the Billboard charts at the time, it had been leaked to the U.S. before it's released by Capitol Records on December 26, 1963. And within 3 days of its release, the record had sold, I think, 250,000 copies.
I think you're doing really well with the numbers.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I had to memorize them. And the song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, it remained #1 on the Billboard charts for 7 weeks. 48 years later, my would-be husband Danny asked if he could hold my hand for the first time. And 4 years after that, our son Colby was born. Now, I know every parent thinks his or her child is someone special, but when I held my son for the first time, I just knew he was. And that was only confirmed when we brought him home from the hospital, and that very night he rolled over. And granted, he wouldn't do it again for several more months, but that was all the proof I needed that my son was special, and I couldn't wait to watch him grow and see who he would become. When he was 3, we had been reading him this story called Trashy Town. And it's about a man named Mr. Gilly who drives his garbage truck around the town, Trashy Town, and cleans it up. And Colby started introducing himself to people as Mr. Gilly. And he would correct Danny and me if we called him by his given name. This went on for some time until he decided he was a priest, our beloved Father Todd. He made our couch into his altar, and he would process around our house carrying candles and books, singing Alleluia. He had a brief stint as Mary Poppins, and then there was a week or two in preschool when all of his work came home signed Nat King Cole. It was like Colby knew he was someone special too. He was just trying to figure out who. And then Colby discovered the Beatles. And from that moment on, he was Sir Paul McCartney. I don't know how he discovered the Beatles. I hadn't been a fan. In fact, I'm embarrassed to admit that before this phase in our lives, I couldn't even name the 4 Beatles. I knew Ringo somebody, and, was Mick Jagger a Beatle at one point? I didn't know.
Ultimate heresy.
But Colby fell in love, and how was I to know, a half century after that Ed Sullivan show, which is generally considered the start of Beatlemania in the United States, Beatlemania would finally hit home, and it would hit hard. Suddenly, our bedtime stories became biographies of the Fab Four. Colby memorized their birthdays, their heights, their middle names. He could tell you that Pete Best was their drummer before Ringo Starr took over. He could tell you Ringo Starr's real name is Richard Starkey. He could tell you that Brian Epstein was their manager. He could tell you which songs George Harrison wrote, which musical instruments John Lennon could play. He could tell you the lead singer of every Beatles song, and he could sing you almost every word to almost every Beatles song. And if you've never heard a 5-year-old sing the lyrics, I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man. Let me tell you, it's an experience unlike any other. You know, while other kids were trick-or-treating as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Spider-Man, Mike Colby dressed up for Halloween in a 3-piece suit and a toy guitar. And when we'd go to cookie cutters, he would beg the stylist for a mop top. He turned his playroom into his personal recording studio. He would spend hours in front of the mirror playing this broken guitar from Goodwill that he had taped up to look like what he thought looked like Paul's famous Hefner violin bass. And playing left-handed, because Paul is left-handed, he perfected his British accent. Fortunately, he'd had some practice during his stint as Mary Poppins. And every once in a while, Colby would invite the rest of the family into his fantasy. He let his little brother, Leo, be George Harrison. Danny, my husband, was John Lennon. And you'd think since there are 4 of us, I would get to be Ringo, but no. Aside from 1 or 2 days that I was Yoko Ono, my main job has been to be a crazy fan, which involves screaming and fainting when they perform or come near, and you know I'm okay with that. Colby is growing up, and he's 7, nearing the end of 1st grade, and only rarely does his work come home signed Paul McCartney. He's moved on to bigger things, literally. His current obsession is tall buildings. And he continues to educate me in ways I didn't expect. I can tell you offhand that the Burj Khalifa in Dubai is the tallest tower at 2,717 feet, but if the Jeddah Tower is ever completed, it will surpass it. And he's growing up in other ways too. He's needing me less and less. He's reading on his own, dressing himself, making his own breakfast. He no longer wants a goodnight kiss. And I am reminded of my Minnie Mouse watch, those gloved hands dancing forward with time, in my Colby's case, much too quickly. But every once in a while, when we're crossing a street or in a crowd, Colby will slip his hand, still small, into mine. And in those moments, I think, Colby, Sir Paul, as long as you'll let me, I want to hold your hand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
nice.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I think that's clearly the title of that story is I Want to Hold Your Hand.
I'll take it. I'm awful at titles. I'll take it. Thank you.
All right.